Well, guys, you know that famous Reddit thread? Am I the asshole? Well, Bryan knew. We're looking at you, kid. March 7th through 9th saw Santi Cooper host a St. Croix Bassmasters Open event. Well, in this event, things got kind of interesting. During this event, Bryan knew Mr. Andrew Upshaw, his co-angler, and then another unidentified boater and his co-angler were all fishing the same pond area for spawning bedding bass. It was during these times that the three anglers were kind of swapping fishing beds, moving through this area, fishing anywhere from 25 yards to 100 yards from each other, kind of rotating through this pond area of all these spawners. Now you got to keep in mind, the water back in this cove was absolutely slick calm. Also, the water was crystal clear, so you could easily see the bass, their beds, and they could easily see you. Now, one of these beds that the gentlemen were targeting had a nice, good 6-pound plus female sitting on top of it. After Bryan knew had targeted this fish for a while with no success, he did the freaking unthinkable. Now, according to Upshaw, after New had targeted this fish for a while with no success, he plows up on top of the bed, cranks his trolling motor clear to the left, guns it. Then clear to the right, guns it. Repeats the process left to right, then gets on top of it, goes in reverse, and blows it out coming straight back. Now in the rotation of these three boats back in this pond, it was the unnamed angler and his co-angler that had next crack at the bed. So they approached New, and the first thing they asked was, "Hey, did you catch that fish?" New responded yes, even though Upshaw had clearly seen him not catch the fish. The next question on the unnamed angler's mind was, well then why did you have to blow out that bed? According to Upshaw, this kind of got a dismissive response from New, and New just kind of left the area. Now Andrew Upshaw, knowing that this behavior wasn't only bad for conservation of the bed of the fish, but extremely bad for sportsmanship, stewed on it a while. Finally he called Hank Weldon and said, there's got to be some way to handle this without an official protest. Maybe you can just have a conversation with the guy and tell him what he did was pretty uncool. Now guys, unless you've run a club or a trail, you don't know how hard it is to have to follow through with a disqualification. And you also don't know how important it is to have to hand them down whenever they're needed. Trust me, they're the only form of policing in tournaments. So Upshaw did not handle this with a light heart. It really bugged the piss out of him. After Andrew's call with Hank, Andrew stews on it for a while. Hank calls Chris Bowes and has a conversation with him. Then a while later, he calls back Andrew and says, you know what? If everything happened the way you said it does and it pans out with all the witness statements, dude, it's a very DQable kind of offense. So you might want to reconsider filing that official protest. Of course, Andrew doesn't want to be that guy. Nobody wants to be that guy. So Andrew took the night to only discuss it amongst a handful of guys that are close in his circle to try to get guidance on whether to pull the trigger on an official protest. So according to Upshaw, the more he thought about the situation, what really bugged him was not only the complete disregard for the bass's habitat and the bass's bed, but the way he just brushed off the other angler, the other guy that was next in line to fish that bed, just very dismissively. The more he thought about it, the more that got under his skin. So, as he was motoring out to get in line for launch the next day, he hit send on that official protest and lodged it with Hank Weldon. At this point, Hank Weldon, Bowes, everybody gets together and they talk with the four witnesses, being Upshaw and his co-angler and the unnamed party and his co-angler as well. According to Upshaw, it looks like all four statements come out and matched perfectly. So after talking with all the witnesses, Bass decided to hand down a disqualification to Bryan New for the event. This disqualification fits under Rule C7, which is the Bassmaster Open Series Rules of Angler Code of Conduct, specifically the part talking about interfering with another angler's ability to compete, i.e. blowing out that bed. Now, one thing that doesn't need to get lost in this is that during the investigation process, whenever Bryan New was interviewed by none other than Hank Weldon about his behavior that day, he actually admits to blowing out the bed purposefully. Said he didn't know it was against the rules, but admits that he did purposely, intentionally blow out the bed. Now, like we've spoken about before on this channel, there is always an appeals process. The appeals committee is made up of 2 open anglers who did not fish the event, and then 1 other member of the bass organization that is not involved in the tournament's division. So here 2 days ago on the 27th, the appeal was heard. There were witnesses called. Upshaw, I think a couple other people, and even Bryan was given the chance to give his side of the story. Now, from my understanding, coming from Upshaw, New didn't come out of this very contrite. Instead, he approached it kind of aggressively. After he had already admitted that he deliberately blew out the bed to prevent someone else from catching the fish, he still said something to the effect of, "You can't tell my intent from that far away." Dude, you already admitted it. Upshaw also said that one of New's arguments was the fact that maybe Bass really didn't corroborate all the witness statements. Well, it looks like they did, and also, again, he admitted to blowing out the dadgum bed. Don't really know where he was going with that argument. Once you admit to the crime, time to do the time. So, at the end of the review, the committee goes back. It takes them less than 20 minutes to make their decision. They come back and the DQ stands. Bryan New disqualified from the March Santi Cooper event. Now, some people are asking kind of an interesting question. Why did the angler that was supposedly wronged in this situation, the unknown angler, why did he not raise the protest? I think that's kind of easy. Like I've said, no one wants to be that guy. I mean, apparently he had a problem with it, or he wouldn't have approached Bryan New and asked him, did he catch the fish? Why did he blow out the bed? It seemed like the dude might have been kind of perturbed with him. Well, no one wants to be that guy throwing the penalty flag. No one wants to be seen as the snitch. Well, guess what, folks? When it comes to tournament bassing, we have to police our own, which means that sometimes you have to make that hard call. Sometimes it's hard to make that honest call and get someone in trouble. These guys are our friends. We fish with them. We're on the road with them, right? We know them. No one wants to think of somebody as somebody that's just a real a-hole, right? I mean, let's face it. Bryan New's little catchphrase tagline is #Don'tSuck. Dude, you blew out a bed. You screwed with a fellow competitor, you kind of suck. So now everybody and their dog's coming down on Andrew Upshaw saying he's just doing it for clicks and views. And let me tell you something. Yeah, the guy might like his social media, but I happen to kind of agree with him on this. I watched his body language during his live last night. Everything I saw with my expertise in neurolinguistics tells me dude's telling the truth. I absolutely think it was a hard decision for Andrew to pull the trigger. I absolutely think he ran it through a few trusted friends before making the call. Not to gossip. The dude didn't want to pull the trigger. But I also believe him when he says it was the dismissive nature that New had towards the other angler that pissed him off and was the straw that broke the camel's back. All New had to have done is apologize, say it was wrong, it was stupid, he shouldn't have done it. And who knows, maybe folks, right or wrong, could have looked the other way. Because let's face it, there's another rule in the code of conduct that applies here. The other unknown angler, the unnamed gentleman that was wronged, he could get in trouble for not reporting the situation. That's right, you're guilty of a violation if you see it and you don't report it. At the end of the day, I personally think Andrew made the right decision. It was a hard call and he's going to catch a lot of hell for it, but Andrew, I think you did right. Anyway, guys, you know it's tournament season again because here comes the controversy. Please do me a favor. Comment, like, share, subscribe. Please become a member. Help out the channel. Help us go do these fun activities like go to the Classic. Anyway, appreciate each and every one of you for watching and being here. Do me a favor. Until next time we meet, get out there in the water. Don't blow out any beds. But keep it wet.